So great to see everyone today, and I'm really excited to talk to you about Wildlife Insights. We just recently launched the public version of Wildlife Insights, so we're inviting people to sign up and contribute their camera trap data if you have some. And so I'll talk about how to get started using Wildlife Insights. I'm based at Conservation International, but as you can see here, Wildlife Insights is a collaboration between many different organizations. And all of these organizations have come together to bring their expertise with camera trap data together to inform the development and building of Wildlife Insights. So I'll just get started and talk a little bit about what we'll cover. So how to get started using the application, how to upload your data, use the AI, review the AI using the tools within Wildlife Insights. I'll talk a little bit about data sharing and what's available to the public, some options you have to keep your data private if needed. And then I'll talk about the direction we're heading with new features in the near future. What won't be covered is downloading public data. So with our public release, we also made available a public data download. So anyone who has a registered Wildlife Insights account can go on and download data sets that have been made public. I won't be covering that today. Maybe that's a topic for the future. And then I also won't be going in depth into the AI model or training the AI model. If you have questions about that, we have a really great resource on wildlifeinsights.org about our AI model, where you can go and learn about FAQs, or this could possibly also be another discussion that we have on WildLabs. So just a little bit about what Wildlife Insights is for people who aren't familiar. I think you're all familiar with some of the barriers to using camera trap data at scale. It can be slow to process data. There's a lack of standardization, which makes it hard to share between projects. It can be difficult to analyze. So I won't go into depth into these issues, but I will mention that there are a lot of options out there, some of which have been covered in these Tech Tutor webinars that are helping to alleviate some of these pains. So you may have seen other data management softwares, other AI solutions, other ways to store your camera trap data. What Wildlife Insights is an end-to-end solution and a cloud-based platform that brings all of those pieces together in one intuitive, user-friendly application. So all of this is being built to help you guys with your end goals. So we want to help provide students, NGOs, other conservationists with all the tools you need to go from picking up your SD card from the camera trap to using that information to take action or answer your conservation questions. So over the past few years, we've been working really hard on these first and last pieces that you see here. So the upload, identify portion, and then data sharing. And what we're working on right now is an automated analytics dashboard that lets you start exploring your data directly in the platform. And beyond the benefits to your project or you as an individual, there's community-wide benefit of open data sharing that can help support conservation globally. So data that you upload to Wildlife Insights can help to form this global database and hopefully help inform decisions at many levels. So I'll just go into some of the features of Wildlife Insights and how this actually works. I'm going to do a brief overview and then I'll jump into the platform itself and do a short demo. So some of the data management features we have right now, the application is cloud-based, so you can upload your data and then work on it from anywhere, anytime you have an internet connection. We have a lot of tools to be able to process the images and review the predictions that the AI model returns, whether it's individually or in bulk. All of the data that's uploaded to Wildlife Insights, including the image, EXIF data, information about the deployment and the camera itself, is standardized. So that makes it really easy to share across projects and even across organizations. And there's really simple ways to do this in the user interface, so you don't have to export data, transfer it to somebody else via email. All of this can be done directly in Wildlife Insights. And then we have batch uploads for legacy data sets. So if you've collected camera trap data in the past using a different software or even no software at all, you can create these batch upload templates to bring in that data to Wildlife Insights, so you have all your information in one place. A little bit about the roles and permissions. There's a lot of flexibility that Wildlife Insights offers. So we have roles managed at each level: the organization, the initiative, and the project. And this gives you the ability to invite people with different permissions. So you might want to invite volunteers to help you tag and review images. Those volunteers might have a tagger or a contributor role. And so they have limited access to edit project details or locations, but they can still review the images in Wildlife Insights. So there's just a lot of flexibility to give access to the people who you want to have certain permissions. A little bit about the AI. The version that's in Wildlife Insights right now has been trained on over 700 species and over 12 million images. So we have species identifications that you'll see in the demo, and we've also integrated bounding boxes. So the bounding boxes detect objects and images, and you'll see some examples of that in the demo as well. And then we have operational statistics, again, at each level: the organization, initiative, and project. This just shows you a basic overview of the images that you've uploaded. So a breakdown of the types of images, whether they're blank or of wildlife, the top 5 species, and the effort. Coming soon, and I'll show you a brief preview later on in this webinar, is the automated analytics. So we're building that out currently and hope to have that later this year or early next year for projects. And then lastly, data sharing. We have a lot of tools where you can customize how you want to share your data. So one is initiatives, which are ways to share projects between organizations. If you create an initiative in Wildlife Insights, you can create your own personalized website that has Wildlife Insights branding on it, but it basically shows a brief overview of the initiative, your goals, the collaborators that are involved, the locations of your projects, and it's just a great way to share that information externally without having to put any extra effort into creating that information. You should all be able to go on Wildlife Insights right now and look at the Explore page. So this is the public page that's open to anyone to explore projects and to download data. And all projects that are created in Wildlife Insights will have a project page on that Explore page where people can learn more about the project and contact you as the project owner if necessary. And then we also have standard Creative Commons licenses. So you can assign this to your metadata and your images, and these dictate how you want your data to be shared. So I'll jump into how you get started actually using Wildlife Insights. It's pretty easy. So there's just a couple basic steps. You create an organization and a project. Then you can start uploading images. As the images are uploading, they're going through the computer vision model, which will return a result. And then after that, you can export the data to analyze, or you can collaborate with your team directly in Wildlife Insights or share also through Wildlife Insights. Before I jump into the platform itself, I'll just talk about a little bit about how the data is organized within Wildlife Insights. So all projects must belong to an organization. You can have several projects within that organization. And then within a project, you'll have your locations, which is just the latitude, longitude. And then you can have several deployments associated with the location. So a deployment is just the unique sighting of a camera at a certain location. So if you do monitoring over several years and you're placing the camera in the same spot, you might have multiple deployments there. We also have the concept of a sub-project, which will come in handy later when we build out the analytics dashboard. The sub-projects lets you group deployments that are either geospatially similar or temporally similar. It's really up to you how you want to define that. Okay, so let me jump into Wildlife Insights. So here you'll see the screen that you'll see if you have an approved account. So this is what you'll see if you're uploading data to Wildlife Insights. I'll just do a quick tour around this interface. So you'll see up here, the main managed section is where you'd go to upload and review images. I'll go over this notifications page later. And then the Explore Data page is the public-facing page of Wildlife Insights. You'll see here options to change your account details, change the language, and in account details, you'll also see an option to use common names in the review process. So you can either see scientific names or common names displayed. There's some links here to submit feature requests, bug reports, or access our help pages on wildlifeinsights.org. And then you can always see a list of your organizations, projects, and initiatives here. So the first step would be to create an organization, and then within that, create a project. So I'll just jump into a project that already exists and highlight some important things. So after you create the project, you'll see this summary page, and this just gives you a brief overview of everything that you've uploaded into this project. So you'll see all of the camera deployments, and then as you're uploading and tagging images, you'll see these little cards update with the total number of images, wildlife images, and then again, images by type or the top 5 species that have been tagged. When you create a project, you'll fill out all of these details. So I'm just going to jump down to some of the more relevant ones here. Here is where you would select a metadata license. So metadata is anything that is not the image. This is the location, the species ID. There are 2 options for you here. Both of these are Creative Commons options, and CC0 is the least restrictive. CC BY 4 is more restrictive. There's information here about the legal text of those, so you can read more about that there. And then there's 3 options for images. So the non-commercial license is the most restrictive. That just means if somebody uses your image, then they can only do so for non-commercial purposes. Another thing I'll highlight here is this credit line. So Wildlife Insights automatically creates a citation for every project that's created in the platform. We will use the names of the project owners in that citation unless something's entered here. So if you want to credit other people that might not have access to the project in the app, you can enter that information here. And then we have an embargo. So we realize that a lot of people are collecting data and would want to publish with that data and don't want to make it public immediately. So right now we have an embargo for up to 24 months. So you can enter the number of months here. The embargo applies separately to each deployment. Whenever you upload the first image is when the embargo starts. So you can see exactly when that embargo is going to begin to release here. If you need more than 24 months, you can always ask us at info@wildlifeinsights.org. And then there are a few options further down here in project settings to delete images of humans. So if there's a legal requirement where you can't store images of humans for whatever reason, you can select this. And then after you confirm an image is of a human, then that image will be deleted from your project storage. You can also select whether you want to record count or not. If you don't select it, then you will be recording count. And if you do select it, then the count will not be an immediate option. It will be in the additional details. And further down is where you would create a subproject, locations, the Latin long, and then deployments. All of these tables have ways for you to sort and filter the information, edit it, or specifically for deployments, we have this option to bulk upload deployments. So you can download an empty template and see all of the information that's required there. But this is a really easy way to create all of this information without having to manually enter it one by one. So you can create hundreds of deployments at once if you're collecting that information while you're setting the camera out. Just jumping back up here, here is an option for you to invite people to your project. So you can select the role here, and then as long as they have an approved account, they will be invited to that project. So I'll just go ahead and upload images. So you can see in that top right-hand corner, there's an upload button, and then I'll just select a few images to be uploaded. Here you can create a new deployment if you want to, but I'll just upload to one that has been created already. This upload time really depends on your internet speed. So if you have a really slow upload speed, this might take some time. I've also heard that if you're uploading tens of thousands of images, there may be time in that period when the system automatically logs you out. So I would recommend uploading thousands of images just to test what that limit is at first. But with that being said, we are working on ways to improve this upload and make it much quicker. So as you saw, the upload was completed. It now brought me to the Identify tab, and this is where all of the results from computer vision can be reviewed. So you'll see here, each of these has gone through computer vision. And as I work through and confirm the IDs, they'll be moved over to this catalog section. Let me just walk through a couple of things here. There's a bunch of different ways for you to sort and search through these images. So the species, you can see which species have been tagged in the project. You can sort whether it's blank or not. And then this is more relevant on the catalog page, but whether it's highlighted or not. You can also sort by the upload date or the date taken, and then group images into bursts of up to 600 seconds. And this just groups the images into groups based on the time that you enter. There's also ways to bulk select. So you can use the common actions like Control A to select everything on the page, or you can select a single image and see what is in that image. So here, I'll also go over a couple of things. You'll see the identification that was returned by computer vision here, the confidence, options to either accept, edit, or mark the image as blank. Here you'll see the bounding box has returned a box around the animal. You can turn this on or off depending on your preferences, but this is essentially a research question that we're asking now. Does every animal have a bounding box? In this situation, I would answer yes, and that photo is updated. We have a lot of scenarios that might come up. If you click on Learn More, there might be bounding boxes around all the animals, but then an extra bounding box. We go over those situations and highlight how you should answer this question. But let's turn that off for now. Here are options to highlight the images, download the image, and then there are also many keyboard shortcuts for you to quickly work through these images. So I wouldn't need to move around with my mouse. I can just say accept with Control A, and then that photo moves on to the catalog section. There's also options to edit the photo, so you can change the brightness and contrast, and then see the metadata of this image. So you can see all of the deployment information, the EXIF data, and then if for some reason the date and time is wrong, you can change the date and time of all of the images in that deployment. So I'll just go through and continue accepting. Let's see if there is an interesting result here. Okay, so this is a good one. Here, this is an example where the model wasn't confident down to the species level, so it actually rolled up the ID. It also wasn't confident at the genus, family, or order level, but it knows that it's a mammal, and it's very confident. So in this situation, you would see it's a mammal, but I want to edit it and then say it's this ID. I can change the count. I can change the age, record the sex, or any other markings. And then I would just say save changes, and that moves on to the catalog section. And then if I wanted to edit this, this image as well, you'll see that the most recent IDs I've made are at the top. So it minimizes the amount of typing and searching that you have to do. So again, all of these images are on the Identify page. If you move to the catalog section, you'll see all of the images that have been tagged already. And then you can search and sort here. So by not blank or by blank, you'll see all of those come up. Going into the bulk selections, you would just use the identification panel down here to assign the ID. So a great workflow would be to bulk select and then, or use the filters and then use the bulk selection to assign that ID. Let me go into the Explore page and show you what this looks like for your project. So every dot on the map represents a project. You can go into any project here and see basic information about that project. Or you can use the filters here, the basic filters to search for project, species, or some country. There's also advanced filters that let you search by project metadata. And all of this can be used to download the data or just explore the map. There's also a more advanced project details page that gives you all the information that you enter on your project details page. So here's the citation that I would use if I use data from this project, all of the objectives, and then all of the details about the project. There's ways for me here to request the exact locations and sensitive data from the project. So if I wanted to do that, I could send a message to the data provider or a data owner. I can also send them a contact message. And then if I wanted to filter this project's data, it would bring me back to this Explore page with the project already filtered. And all of that information goes to your notifications page where you can see an overview of all of the contacts that have been sent about your project. So here's the sensitive species request. I can approve or deny that request. So if I approve that request, the person who sent it would get access to the data file that I have access to as a project owner. So all of the information would be available to them. Here are the messages that are sent to you. So you can copy and paste this email address into your own email client. And then the really cool thing is that every time somebody downloads data from the Explore page and it includes data from your project, you'll see that listed here. So you can search and sort through this table, but you'll see the name of the project, the email of that person who downloaded the data, and then the reason and expected product that they're looking to produce with that data. And these are questions that we ask with every download. So this gives you a lot of transparency into how the data is being used and would allow you to reach out to that person and ask for collaboration or see what type of research they're looking into. So let me stop there because I know we're getting up to the half hour and see if we have, oh, actually, I have a few more slides. So just going over some data privacy common concerns that we have. With the public download, we do fuzz the locations of sensitive species. So any species deemed as vulnerable, endangered, or critically endangered by IUCN will cut the coordinates so that the public download includes the fuzz version. Later on, we're going to be allowing a custom list of sensitive species for every project. Again, if you embargo your data, then you can keep that private for up to 24 months and an additional 24 months if you ask for approval. And then additionally, we hide the images of humans. So as long as you tag the image as a human, that won't be available to the public. A little bit about where we're going in the future. So right now, Wildlife Insights is available online, but we're building out a desktop client that could be used offline and then would sync with Wildlife Insights. So we do know that a lot of people work in remote areas and need to be able to process their data when they don't have access to the internet. So this is something super exciting that we'll be adding to some of the tools in the platform. Some of the automated analytics I'll show you a preview of soon. And then we have a lot of features that we're looking at implementing to improve the process to manage data and make that just a lot more seamless. And the AI model, the team is looking into leveraging sequential information, and they'll be retraining the model every few months. So as you're approving the IDs of images, then those can be reused, brought into our training data set and improve the accuracy of species. And here's just a short preview of some of the analytics that we're building out. So you'd be able to filter for projects, filter for data within that project, and then see a couple of analytics that are produced directly in Wildlife Insights. So activity budget, single species, two species, detection rate and species richness, the wildlife picture index and occupancy. And then later on, beyond this initial analytics dashboard, we're going to be looking at other ways that you could explore data and different covariates. So just to wrap up, so we're now open to the public. So if you have camera trap data and you want to start using Wildlife Insights, go ahead and sign up for an account on app.wildlifeinsights.org. You need to submit a form for account approval, and that's how you'll get access to the whole data management portion. Once you submit that form, we'll be in contact with you in a day or two to approve the account and send you additional resources. And here are some other resources that we can send out later and are, I think, linked in the page for this Tech Tutor talk. We have the Google groups for people to ask questions. Our Get Started pages have a lot of information that I just went over and more details. Again, if you want to learn more about the AI, go to our page on wildlifeinsights.org. And then you can also just send us any questions that you have at info@wildlifeinsights.org. And I will stop there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nicole, for that awesome presentation. So this brings us to the Q&A. Just as a reminder for participants, we've been keeping track of the questions you've been putting in the chat so far. Please feel free to continue to drop them in as we discuss, and let us know if you have a mic, and if you do not, we're happy to ask them for you. Also, as Ellie dropped in the chat earlier, just noting that we have an awesome little crew of Wildlife Insights team members here who are answering some of the questions, which is great for us. We are still going to ask some of those just for the benefit of people watching the recording who can't access the chat, as long as we have time to get to them. So Nicole, I'll start us off with a question. Clearly, Wildlife Insights has this massive potential and huge value already to the community, as you just walked us through. To kick us off, we were curious to get straight to a couple of the concerns that might come up from potential end users. So two of the main ones that came through during registration questions were about sharing data publicly, which I know you addressed a couple of the options there, and then the inability to train your own models. So could you just give us a little bit more information about why these things are set up the way they are and kind of the motivation and thinking behind them?
Sure. So I'll address the first question first. So around open data sharing, we hear this a lot, and I know that there can be a lot of reasons for not wanting to share data. If it's for a legal reason, that's totally legitimate. Just contact us and we'll find a solution around that. There are also a lot of other reasons and hesitancies, and I get all of those concerns as well. Not being able to receive credit for the time you put into collecting the data. There's a lot of time and money that goes into putting out the cameras and then just processing it. Not knowing how the data is used, and then not having full control over who accesses that information. So as you saw in kind of the public download notifications page, we've thought about this a lot and wanted to address those concerns. So we built out those features to kind of alleviate some of those concerns. If you remember the notifications page, you have complete control over access to sensitive data. So again, the locations are completely blurred for deployments with sensitive species. And if you want to grant access to that, it's totally up to you. We also allow you to embargo your data. So if you do need to publish and want to keep it private for some amount of time, you can do that, and it's private for as long as you need. Again, once your data is made available to the public, there are a lot of ways that you can track who has accessed it and how it might be used. There's only so much that Wildlife Insights can do to ensure that it's being used in the way that people say that they're using it, but that's why we provide you with the contact information to be able to reach out to those people and have a conversation if that's what you need. So we're hoping that all of these tools alleviate some of those concerns that people are having to share data. And then I think there's more motivation around sharing data and giving life to the data beyond its initial purpose. There's so much time and money, again, being spent on these projects, and often the data is used for a specific purpose, and then it might be lost on a hard drive, or the data is corrupted for some reason. Putting it into Wildlife Insights, you're supporting the goal of the broader community to have a better idea of how wildlife populations are faring at many different levels and changing in response to climate change and other factors. So I think there's a lot of great reasons to share the data. And if there's other concerns, we're always open to hearing what those are. And then the second question about being able to bring in your own machine learning models, that's something that we've talked about from the beginning, but we're just not there yet. So we need to hear from users that this is something that they really want to see in Wildlife Insights, and maybe this is something that WildLabs can help with to poll the community and see how much interest that's of. At the end of the day, Wildlife Insights is very community driven, so if we see that that's a big need, we can start the conversations to see how we can make that happen.
Awesome, thank you for that. It looks like our first participant question is coming from Rita. Rita, do you want to jump in?
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
Sorry for the delay. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Hi. My question is maybe is a little bit stupid, but I would like to understand better. But Wildlife Insight is like mainly the machine learning software that is used to analyze all the images coming from all the camera traps, or is more like, as you say, community where all the people are sharing data, but also there is space for the IE community to have the data and to start collaboration with people with camera traps?
Yeah, that's a great question. Machine learning is definitely one part of the platform. Sorry, I'm just getting a little bit of feedback. And so that portion is to try to help you process your data even quicker. But as you mentioned, there are several other parts of the platform. So it's helping you to manage your data, but also share the data beyond your project or even within your own collaboration. So there's a lot of different ways to share. One of them is the initiatives. So if you're working with several different organizations, and each organization has their own projects, but want to bring them together for some purpose, you can do that by creating an initiative in Wildlife Insights. And then there's all of the data sharing aspect of it as well, where the data that's entered into Wildlife Insights will eventually be made public and will be made available to the broader community. So Wildlife Insights kind of hits at all of those different areas where we're trying to not only help the users process the information, but also use it for their own purposes, and that the conservation community has access to it for other purposes as well.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. I think Carly has our next question. Carly, do you want to jump in?
It was pretty much, I had a bunch of them, but they were all kind of answered in the chat. So I don't know if you want to like go to questions that weren't answered in the chat first.
Just for the benefit of people who are watching back the recording, do you want to maybe ask about the taxonomic biases, maybe.
Oh yeah, I was just wondering, you said like the 700 species, is there any particular like taxonomic bias or context bias, like how much of that is like arboreal species, because a lot of camera trap data is like terrestrial, or underwater cameras, things like that?
Yeah, so this is a question that I think would be great to punt to the AI team. I'm not as familiar with all of the data that's gone into the training data set. I do know that it's mostly arboreal, if not all, but we have great resources on the About AI page that show you how many images of each species in the training data set are there, and then the accuracy of those species. So there's definitely a lot of species that where we have more images represented in the training data set. And that just means that the AI model will probably perform better for those species. For species that don't have many images in the training data set, the model might not be able to predict well if you have an image with that species. But I think that's more reason to contribute the data and correct the ID, because you're helping yourself in the future if you're focusing on that species, and other people that might be studying that species as well. So the training model is something, or the AI model is something that's going to be in progress and continuing to improve as more people are using Wildlife Insights.
Okay, great. You said the majority of the data is arboreal?
Or terrestrial, sorry.
Okay, I was about to be like, what? Where is that data coming from? Okay, yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks, Nicole. Rob, do you want to jump in and ask your question?
Sure. Thank you, Nicole. That was a great demo. I just am a little, maybe I'm stupid. A lot of people would say that I am. It seemed like you uploaded brand new images, ran it through, this is in your demo, ran it through, and within a very short time, you had essentially classified images there to look at. Is that correct? So those images had never been processed before?
So those images I was uploading new, so I only through them and ID'd them, but those images are actually from a training data set. So you saw that the confidence of the AI model was pretty high. That's likely because the model had seen images that were similar to those images. But with that said, there's still a step in Wildlife Insights where you'll need to go through and confirm the identifications. So depending on how much you trust the AI, you can use the bulk selections to filter and then move many images to the catalog section and confirm the ID. But if the confidence of the AI model is low, or you know that the AI model hadn't seen that species in the training data set, you'll probably want to spend more time on that identification and review step.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, our next question is from someone who is unable to ask right now, is Paul Jensen. And he asked, during the identification stage, can multiple people classify the same image, or once classified and cataloged, are they removed for further classification?
Yeah, so any image is open for reclassification if needed. So if you're reviewing the work of a volunteer or for some other reason, you can change the ID even when it's in the catalog section. And you can also see the history of the ID in the app. So you can track who has ID'd it at what time.
Okay, great. Then there were also a couple of quick follow-ups. So he says, as part of our survey protocol, we're also collecting data on snow depth using snow stakes that are captured in every photo. Is there flexibility in the data that are tagged? For example, could I add a snow depth field?
That's something that we can talk about offline. I think that we actually added to our taxonomy something related to covered by snow, because we've heard this use case before where they're setting it up in areas with high snow levels, and sometimes the cameras get covered by snow. But for now, there's options in the deployments field or the image field for you to enter custom remarks. Whether that's something that we bring in as a standard field is something that we can talk about offline.
Okay. And then last one from Paul was whether, like, basically how good the model is at predicting false positives. It sounded like you had infrastructure built in for that, but.
Yeah, so you can go on to, I don't know the exact number, but you can go on to the wildlifeinsights.org about AI page to see the stats about how it performs for blanks and for different species.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Ari, do you want to jump in with your question?
Yes, hi. Can you see me?
Yes.
Hi. Hi, Nicole. Great job. Great to see you.
Hey, Ari.
Hi. So I have a question. Can you take data from different programs and put it together in a new Wildlife Insights program, or would you recommend just like downloading that data and doing analytics on it yourself on a different software or something? How would that work?
It depends what you're starting with and what your end goal is. So are you talking about projects that are in a different software, or are they already in Wildlife Insights?
Like already in Wildlife Insights, like if I'm looking for one specific species and want to take data from different projects for this one species, like could I create a new project within Wildlife Insights for that?
Yeah, so if you wanted to combine the data from multiple projects, you could create an initiative and have both of those projects join the initiative. And then within the initiative page, you'll have a similar interface where you can go to the catalog section and then use the filters to filter for that species. And then you would be able to download all of the data from that initiative too, and then take it out of Wildlife Insights and do whatever you want to do with it after.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Thanks, Ari. Bethany, do you want to jump in? I think you had a couple of questions. You can go ahead and ask both of them.
All right, thanks. Yeah, so I was wondering, first of all, so you said that the human images would be hidden from any sort of public sharing, but I just wondered within the project, is there going to be a feature for just blurring those images so that once you've sort of accepted the identification as human, you can no longer actually clearly see those images anymore?
Yeah, so we have a couple of options there. In the project settings, I highlighted that option to delete images of humans. So if you select that, then the image will actually be removed. So you won't be able to access the image itself. You'll see data. You'll see that it was tagged as a human, and then any other notes that you want to enter. But if you don't select that, then the project owners and editors will still be able to see the image once it's identified as a human, but it will be blurred for all of the other roles. So the project contributor, tagger, and viewer. So it's role based on when it's blurred.
Oh, okay. And so so once you classify it, it still keeps the data on the humans even when you click delete. So you still know where the images were, you just can't see them anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That would probably work. That's cool. Thanks. And then the second question I had was just, so when I signed up for an account, understandably, it takes a lot of money to run these things, I'm sure, but there was a note about a sort of subscription fee, and I just wondered if there was any update on that. As a PhD student, I don't want to put all my data into something that I then can't afford in a few months' time. So.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a good question and one that we get a lot. So just from the social impact perspective, we want to make sure that everyone who wants to use Wildlife Insights can use it. But at the same time, we know that we need to make Wildlife Insights sustainable and it can support itself in the future. So that's why we're implementing the pricing model. It takes into account a couple things. So volume of data, type and size of organization, and geographic location. But with that said, we're also including a lot of fee waivers for most users. So at the end of the day, if you want to support conservation, we're aware that it's not a field that's flush with money, and that everyone might not be able to afford a subscription fee. So you can just get in contact with us if you have any questions about that.
Okay, fab. Thank you.
All right, our next question is going to come from registration. Steph, do you want to ask this one?
Yeah, I'm giving voice to Scott's question because it was quite interesting. And he asked, how is this AI tool similar or different than the alternatives? Like last week we heard about Mega Detector. And when or how could we test it on a subset of our images?
Yeah, really good question. So just start off, I think it's really great that there's so many people working on this issue. It's obviously something that a lot of people have problems with and have dealt with personally in the past. So I think that the more people working on this, the more progress there is as a community. But with that said, I think that everyone's doing something slightly different with different end goals. So Wildlife Insights is really providing all of those pieces, including data management, analytics, and then the ultimate data sharing and creation of a singular database with collaboration features. So you can go from card to analysis all in one place. Specifically to Mega Detector, they're focusing on object detection, while the AI in Wildlife Insights is focusing on species detections. You also saw that there's bounding boxes in Wildlife Insights, and that's something that we're starting to train on additionally, and is part of the roadmap for the AI team. So I think that there's a lot of benefit that people could get from using Wildlife Insights, even if they're using other tools or vice versa. They're just attacking different parts of the problem, I think.
Well, I just had a follow-up. You might have covered this in the start of your talk, so if you have, I'm really sorry. I was just wondering, who's actually creating who's building all the models and the AI for your for Wildlife Insights? Is it Google, or is it? I think there were quite a few people in the chat who were working on it at Yale. Are you just doing it through partners?
So there's a small team at Google who's retraining, who has created and is retraining the AI model. We have partners at Yale's Map of Life that are using the information from Wildlife Insights to do some higher level studies on, trends in wildlife across the world, and also helping to build out some of the automated analytics that you're going to see later this year.
Cool.
Yep.
Thank you.
Awesome. Ellie, do you want to jump in with our next question?
Yes, I do. All right, so this one is coming to us from Siyu Yang, who of course was last week's presenter on our Mega Detector episode. And she asks, how do the manual annotation components work, and how does it compare to working in time-lapse?
So the annotation, as you saw in the demo, there's a lot of tools to be able to bulk select and then enter in the ID, enter in different counts or information about the age or sex. So all of that is directly in that interface. And if you need more information, there's more tutorials on our YouTube page or information on the Get Started pages. How it differs from time-lapse, I'm afraid I haven't used time-lapse myself. I've seen some videos about it, and it looks like it's really helpful and quick. I think the biggest difference is that time-lapse you can use offline right now. Wildlife Insights is online, but it both seem like they have a lot of different tools and features and are really thoroughly thought through to be able to help people move through their data really quickly.
Awesome. Carly, I see you had another question. Do you want to jump in with that?
Yeah, I was wondering how Wildlife Insights handles videos compared to images.
Yeah, so right now we don't accept videos. We're focusing on camera trap images. The video question is a different AI question. So it would require different training data set, slightly different infrastructure to support the video, and potentially different UI. It's definitely something that we're interested in, and I think it makes sense as the next step, because we know a lot of people are collecting video along with their images. It's just a matter of finding the right partners and funding to be able to get there.
Could there be, like, I think right now Mega Detector has basically like a quick and dirty like segmentation pre-step that you can do that like takes the videos and like yeah, just like breaks them into images. Is that something that like Wildlife Insights could do, or would you have to like do that on a different software on your own and then upload like those segmented images?
Yeah, currently we don't have the option for that. It's something that we can definitely explore as we hear from more users that they are collecting video data. But for right now, it's something that you would have to do kind of as a pre-processing step before bringing the data into Wildlife Insights.
Okay. Steph, did you want to ask your other question?
No, Bethany just asked another question in the chat. Then I've got many questions I could ask.
Okay, Bethany, you want to jump back in?
Yeah, sorry, me again. No, I was just wondering, and I'm really, really sorry if I missed it in the video, but just how customizable is sort of adding tags and things to different photos for different bits of information that you might want? Because we just had the snow depth question and it sounded like that would have to be input as one of the species tags. So it doesn't sound like we're going to be able to add like a drop down for different behaviors or something. So like I work with domestic dogs out in the wild, and it would be good to have a sort of, it's a mixed breed or it's this type of breed without typing it into a custom note all the time. And yeah, just is there any options for making that a bit easier?
Yeah, so we do have a couple of additional fields right now where you can tag information about individuals or even behavior or like the color of an individual. It's not set with selected options because we know that that can be really expansive and people have many different tags.
Yeah.
So right now we don't have plans to make that customizable so you can enter your own. But there is the option for you to enter those fields and have it consistent across your project. As far as taxonomy, there's a standard Wildlife Insights taxonomy that goes down to species, but also includes human types, objects like bikes or cars, and we can always expand on that if there's other objects that aren't included.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. We are almost on the hour. As Ellie just dropped in the chat, she is reminding us that there is a forum you can follow up with your questions in. So this will be the last question. We're just kind of interested in like your ultimate vision for Wildlife Insights, I guess. So last week during the Mega Detectors session, we asked, as machine learning tools are progressing and evolving so quickly, like you said, with so many people working in this area, how do you see this platform evolving? And what can the conservation tech community do to kind of support its success?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that this is a very first step in the ultimate vision of Wildlife Insights. Ultimately, it would be great to have better, more real-time information about wildlife. And so getting the processing step down to a fraction of the time it took to do that step before is just one small step in achieving that larger goal. And Wildlife Insights is going to build with the community. So Wildlife Insights is nothing without the community. We need people to contribute their data, give us feedback on what is missing or if there are any concerns to contributing data and sharing that openly. But I think with better information, we're just going to be able to make better decisions on wildlife, because right now a lot of that is lacking at even the international or national level. And Wildlife Insights is heading towards that goal of making it more widely available for everyone, for international policymakers down to community level. And as long as the information can be processed and analyzed easily, I think that we're on the right track.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much again, Nicole, and for everyone who joined us today. As we mentioned, Nicole does have to run now, but as always, we are going to stay around and chat. So feel free to stay. It's a pretty informal conservation tech chat time. Ellie dropped in the link to next week's episode. That's going to be on ethics and conservation tech and should be super interesting. It's a panel discussion, so make sure to sign up for that. And we will share the recording in the next couple of days. Thank you all.
Awesome. Thank you.